to think they have an audience of one. An audience of one. It's the Lord they're doing this for. It's the Lord they're seeking to please, and it doesn't matter if anybody else approves or not. It's for the Lord.
This is Master Ministry. Tips, tools, and truths to advance eternal effectiveness in ministry. I'm your host, Douglas Hammett. Let's move into the broadcast now.
What would you say over the years has been the top one or two key doctrines that you've emphasized the most in the church and captivated your heart in ministry?
When I got a vision of the doctrine of the church, that really revolutionized my life. And then to go one step beyond that and realize what the purpose of a scriptural New Testament church is. We have a mission, we have marching orders. God gave us a work to do, and I think sometimes we major on minors, and at the same time we could become overbalanced even with a part of our mission rather than seeing the whole thing. And so missions, making disciples, baptizing them, teaching them to do all things whatsoever Christ had commanded his disciples to do, that three-part commission formula, I believe, is so critically important. And I've seen some churches become so much into emphasizing evangelism that they allow some of the other things to slip. And I suppose it's possible to overemphasize, just knowledge and information and doctrine as well, so that you lose evangelistic zeal. But I've said this before, and I believe it's true, that over the years, the life of Bible Baptist Church has been missions. Whether we're talking at home, right here in our Jerusalem, or across this country, helping American church planters, or foreign missions, that's the thing that really keeps people focused and motivated, is the fact that we have a job to do. We have a purpose here. And one of the mantras, perhaps, of my life and ministry is to try to maintain balance, because we are so inclined to be unbalanced and go to some extreme in some area or other, and to maintain balance and to have the Spirit of Christ, and to be, of course, under the control of the Holy Spirit as we endeavor to fulfill the mission that God's given us as a scriptural New Testament church. But I'd say the doctrine of the church has been such a critical thing in my life and ministry.
I guess the thing that's kind of stood out to me over the years I've known of your church is there's what appears to be, at least from a distance, a doctrinal stability that's here. It's just been a constant, not only through your ministry, but Brother Silcock's before you, and it just kind of has continued, like, without any hiccups, But second, that impetus of outreach, of missions, of reaching people around the world has been there. And I guess I kind of see that as the spark plug that keeps everything ignited.
Right.
But the doctrine is like the vehicle, the engine that's sitting there and properly put together. And so what I've been, caught with in the church is that this stability's here over the long haul. And I fear there's a lot of churches that don't keep those two in tandem like they should.
Yes, I believe that's true. I remember Preacher Silcox telling a story years ago about a church that he pastored for a short while before he came up to Grand Forks to become the first permanent pastor of our church back in 1966, 50 years ago right now. He said that he had a man who was an officer in the church ask him in a Sunday school teachers meeting why he was always preaching doctrine. And he was a little puzzled how to answer a question like that. And he said, well, why do you ask? And this man's response was, well, Pastor, don't you know if you give people too much doctrine, they'll lose their faith? And that always was very humorous to me, but at the same time very sad that somebody who supposedly is grounded in truth would have so little understanding. We need to know the truth, but even right thinking, orthodoxy can become dead. And so there has to be that vision of why we're here. And we learn and we teach and we preach and we grow and we come into spiritual maturity, but what good is any of that if we're not implementing it? And that's part of the balance I'm talking about, that we have to maintain that balance. And I am so thankful for a pastor who came before me, who pastored this church its first 24 years, who had that balance down, who understood the importance of preaching and teaching doctrine, and at the same time helping to motivate the people to outreach and evangelism and missions. And I inherited a great thing here, and we have maintained it, and I believe that the Lord has blessed it in the intervening years. But the church has had a wonderful run of stability and maturity and longevity in the membership. And the people are we see a few people saved and added to the congregation. They grow and they become stable, and I think that churches perhaps like ours are more and more rare all the time, at least from what I hear. And all I can think is the reason is that people are looking for the wrong things. Leadership in what maybe could be scriptural churches, or what were once scriptural churches, are looking for success under a different definition. And I have come to believe for many years now that no matter what any man thinks or what the culture or the society thinks, whether our church is experiencing rapid growth or not, whether people approve of our ministry or not, it's what the Lord thinks is most important. And I read something here a couple of years ago that really resonated with me, and the writer, his name you would recognize if I mentioned it, a great devotional Christian writer from the 20th century, wrote this. He said, whenever a preacher, pastor, singer, anybody gets up in front of the church to minister, that person ought to think they have an audience of one. An audience of one. It's the Lord they're doing this for. It's the Lord they're seeking to please, and it doesn't matter if anybody else approves or not. It's for the Lord. And we remember that when we see people that we've invested our lives in take backward steps. We remember that when they disappear. We remember that even though we've invested ourselves in people's lives and families and so on, ultimately it's not wasted because it wasn't ultimately for them, it was for the Lord. And our desire is to please Him above all else.
Thanks for listening. You know your ministry does not have to stagnate or die. If you want to get out of the box and into the book, get some help right now. Give me a shout at pdhammett@gmail.com. We'll discuss what you need and recommend a course of action. Get in touch with me. You can also find tips, tools, and truths to advance eternal effectiveness in ministry and make an eternal impact at masterministry.com. Thanks for listening. Now let's go make a difference.